In today's story, we're looking at 10 people who vanished in broad daylight and were never seen again. No struggle, no trace, just disappearances that defy explanation. These are real cases, haunting and unresolved. This is TrueCrime HorrorUnfiltered, where real stories get darker. In every disappearance, there's a moment, the last moment someone saw you alive. A phone call, a wave, a smile, something so ordinary, no one realizes it's the final page of your story. But the people in today's video didn't vanish in the dead of night. They disappeared in broad daylight, with witnesses watching, and with no possible way they could have just slipped away. Yet they did. 10 lives, 10 stories, 10 impossible vanishings, each one more disturbing than the last. These are cases where logic fails, where evidence collapses, and where families are left with nothing but questions and a fear that grows darker each year. Because what happened to them could happen to anyone, even in the safest moments, even under the brightest sun. And once you hear what happened, you'll understand. Sometimes the most terrifying disappearances don't happen in the shadows. They happen right in front of us. On May 14th, 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson climbed into his car and began what should have been a short, ordinary drive home after celebrating the end of his college semester. It was after midnight, and the roads between Lind and Marshall, Minnesota, were familiar to him. But within an hour, Brandon would vanish in a way that continues to baffle investigators to this day. Just after 1:45 a.m., Brandon's car slid off a gravel road and became stuck in a ditch. He wasn't hurt. His voice on the phone was calm when he called his parents, Brian and Annette, asking them to come pick him up. He explained where he believed he was, near the town of Lind, and turned on his car's hazard lights so they could find him. But when his parents arrived, they saw nothing. No hazards, no car, no Brandon. Brandon stayed on the phone, trying to guide them, growing frustrated and confused. He eventually said he would walk toward a set of lights he believed belonged to Lind. His parents kept him on the line as he walked through fields in the dark. For nearly 47 minutes, Annette listened as Brandon described his surroundings. Fences, gravel, the sound of rushing water somewhere nearby. Then, suddenly Brandon shouted, "Oh shit!" and the call disconnected. His parents tried calling back dozens of times. The phone rang each time, but he never answered. The next morning, police found Brandon's car, not near Lind at all, but 25 miles away near Taunton. He had been completely mistaken about his location. Search teams flooded the area, covering fields, rivers, and farmland. Bloodhounds tracked his scent to the edge of the Yellow Medicine River, and then it vanished. Divers searched the water. Nothing. His phone kept ringing for a full day before going silent. No evidence of foul play. No confirmed sign of drowning. No clothing, no backpack, no remains. Brandon simply walked into the early morning light and disappeared. Despite hundreds of search hours and one of the largest volunteer efforts in Minnesota's history, Brandon Swanson has never been found. His case remains one of the most unsettling daylight disappearances in American true crime history, made even more haunting by the fact that his parents were on the phone with him almost until the moment he vanished. On February 9, 2004, 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray packed her car, emailed her professors that she'd be gone for a week due to a family emergency, and drove north toward the White Mountains of New Hampshire. What she didn't know was that her brief presence on a quiet rural road would soon become one of the most dissected disappearances in modern American history. At 7:27 p.m., Maura lost control of her black Saturn and crashed into a snowbank on Route 112 in the small town of Haverhill. A passing school bus driver stopped and asked if she needed help. Maura insisted she had already called AAA, a statement investigators later learned was impossible because there was no cell service in that area at the time. The driver offered to call police. Maura begged him not to. He drove home and contacted authorities anyway. When police arrived 7 minutes later, Maura was gone. Her car doors were locked, and there were no footprints in the snow leading into the woods, only those suggesting someone had walked around the vehicle. Inside the car, a box of wine and an empty beer can, a printed map of the region, her belongings neatly packed the airbag, deployed rags stuffed into the tailpipe. Search teams combed the area for days. Helicopters sent dogs, and volunteers spread to the woods, the highway, and nearby rivers. A dog tracked Maura's scent for about 100 yards east of the crash site before it abruptly stopped, as if she had been picked up by a passing vehicle. But no one ever reported seeing her, and no neighbors saw a car pull over. The timeline only grew stranger. Earlier that day, Maura had emptied her bank account, purchasing alcohol and gas before making the final drive north. There was no family emergency, no known destination, just an aimless drive toward the mountains in the dead of winter. Her phone records revealed nothing helpful, and her dorm room had been left in a way suggesting she might return. Online, theories exploded. Was she running from something? Planning to start over? Did she meet someone? Was she the victim of an opportunistic passerby? Or did she wander into the woods, injured and disoriented, only to vanish under the harsh New Hampshire night? To this day, Maura Murray has never been found. Her disappearance remains one of the most debated missing person cases of the 21st century, a case where daylight briefly revealed her before the darkness swallowed every trace. Every year, people still travel to the crash site on Route 112, staring down the same quiet road where Maura stood for the last confirmed time. The snow still falls there. The wind still moves through the trees. But Maura, like so many others, walked out of sight and never returned. On the night of April 1st, 2006, 27-year-old medical student Brian Shaffer walked into the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a busy bar near Ohio State University. Security cameras captured him arriving with two friends just after 1:15 a.m. He looked tired but relaxed. Finals week had been brutal. Brian needed a break. What he didn't know was that he was about to walk straight into one of the most baffling disappearances ever recorded on camera. Throughout the night, Brian had several drinks. He laughed with classmates, chatted with patrons, and at one point stepped outside the bar with two women he had met. He told them he would see them inside shortly and walked back toward the entrance. That moment, him walking off camera, will be the last confirmed sighting of Brian Shaffer, because just minutes later, he would vanish. The Ugly Tuna sat on the second floor of a building undergoing heavy construction. To reach the bar, patrons had to take an escalator or a single stairwell, both monitored by security cameras. Numerous cameras covered every exit. Brian was seen walking toward the entrance, but there was no footage of him ever leaving. Police replayed surveillance footage over and over, checking every frame. They combed through hours of recordings from neighboring businesses. They even examined the possibility that Brian disguised himself, swapping clothes or hiding behind a crowd. But the footage never showed him exiting the building. For investigators, this was impossible. A person can't simply vanish from a bar with only 2 points of entry and exit, both fully visible. The search widened. His girlfriend, Alexis, called him repeatedly for days. Every call went to voicemail, except one. On September 14th, months after he vanished, Brian's phone rang just once. The call pinged a cell tower 14 miles away, but carriers later said this could have been due to a glitch or tower bounce. No evidence showed he was alive. Theories have swirled for nearly 2 decades. Did Brian accidentally access the construction area and fall into a hidden shaft? Police searched the site top to bottom. No trace. Was he targeted by someone inside the bar? No signs of a struggle. No suspicious individuals on camera. Did he walk out unseen, blending perfectly with the crowd? Experts say the overlap of cameras made this nearly impossible. Did he stage his own disappearance? Those closest to him insist Brian had no reason to run, though he was grieving his mother's recent death. Eventually, time froze. The bar closed. The construction finished. Students graduated and moved on. But Brian's case remained suspended. A disappearance with hundreds of witnesses, but not a single answer. To this day, detectives say that in all their years of missing person cases, nothing compares to the impossibility of Brian Shaffer's disappearance. He stepped into a crowded bar filled with people, cameras, and noise, and slipped into a void no one has been able to explain. On September 10, 2001, 31-year-old Dr. Sneha Philip left her Manhattan apartment and walked into the city she knew so well. Security cameras later captured her shopping at a department store, calmly buying several items. lingerie, a dress, bed linens, and candles. She seemed relaxed, unhurried. Nothing about her demeanor hinted that these would be the last confirmed images ever recorded of her. The next morning, the world changed. Sneha lived just blocks from the World Trade Center. When the towers fell on September 11th, they buried the city in chaos, confusion, and ash. Thousands were missing. Lines between the lost, the injured, and the dead blurred instantly. And among those names was Sneha Philip. But unlike most of the victims, Sneha's case didn't begin inside the towers. It began the night before, and that's what makes her disappearance so haunting. When Sneha didn't return home on the evening of the 10th, her husband, Ron Lieberman, assumed she was staying with her cousin, something she occasionally did after long shifts. But as the hours passed, there was no word from her. The next morning, Ron left for work just before the first plane hit. When he returned home after escaping the chaos, Sneha was still gone. Her apartment was coated with dust and debris from collapse. Her cell phone was never recovered. Her credit cards were never used again. And her final known movements ended at that department store on the 10th. Investigators began piecing together her last 24 hours, and the story fractured in multiple directions. One theory: Sneha died while trying to help. As a doctor, she would have naturally gone toward danger. Witnesses reported medical workers rushing into the towers before their collapse. Her family believes she ran to Ground Zero to assist victims and died as a civilian hero. In 2008, this theory was bolstered when New York officially recognized her as a 9/11 victim. Another theory: she vanished before the attacks. Some investigators challenged her behavior leading up to that night. Sneha had recently been suspended from her residency program, accused of unprofessional conduct. Accusations she denied. She was under emotional stress. Some suggested she may have chosen to walk away from her life, using the chaos of 9/11 as cover. But this theory had problems. She left no note. She withdrew no money. She had nothing packed. Her marriage, by all accounts, was intact. The most unsettling possibility: foul play. New York on the night of September 10th was a city unaware of the catastrophe to come, and still full of risk. Could someone she met have harmed her? Her purchases suggested she planned to return home, but she never did. To this day, no trace of Sneha has ever surfaced. Not her clothes, not her belongings, not her remains. Her disappearance sits suspended between two timelines, one ending on September 10th and one consumed by September 11th. For some, she is a hero. For others, a mystery. For everyone, a question that may never be answered. In July 2014, 28-year-old German tourist Lars Mittank traveled with friends to the Bulgarian coast for what was supposed to be a carefree summer vacation. The group enjoyed the beaches, the nightlife, and the warm Black Sea weather, until one night, an argument changed everything. Lars got into a brief fight with a group of men over a soccer disagreement. He was struck in the head, injuring his ear. A local doctor examined him and diagnosed a ruptured eardrum, advising him not to fly until it healed. His friends had to return home as scheduled, but Lars stayed behind alone at a cheap hotel in Varna, intending to fly back once cleared. It was during those next 48 hours that Lars's behavior shifted into something deeply unsettling. From his hotel, Lars began calling his mother in a panic. He told her he was being followed. He whispered that men were trying to kill him. At one point, he texted her asking about his credit card, and then abruptly shut off his phone. Staff at the hotel later reported that Lars seemed paranoid, pacing the halls and hiding inside the elevator. When he visited a local doctor the next day for clearance to fly, things escalated further. Inside the airport clinic, just minutes before his scheduled flight, Lars suddenly stood up in fear, muttering, "I don't want to die here." Without warning, he bolted out of the examination room, sprinting through the terminal and past the security cameras. The footage became infamous. Lars could be seen running full speed, abandoning his luggage, racing out of the airport, and crossing the parking lot. He didn't stop. Cameras then captured him sprinting toward a field, jumping a fence, and disappearing into a dense line of trees. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. When police checked his abandoned luggage, they found his wallet, his passport, his phone, all of his clothes, his medication. Everything a traveler would need, left behind. Authorities conducted extensive searches of surrounding forests and fields, but found nothing. No clothing, no footprints, no traces suggesting he had collapsed or been attacked. The theories surrounding Lars's disappearance are numerous and haunting. 1. Paranoia triggered by a medical condition. Some doctors propose that his ear injury, combined with antibiotics, may have caused a rare neurological reaction resulting in extreme paranoia. 2. He was genuinely being followed. Lars's frantic calls to his mother and the consistency of his fear led some to believe he encountered dangerous individuals. 3. A psychological break. A sudden psychotic episode could explain his sprint from the airport and disappearance into the wilds. 4. Foul play after fleeing into the fields. The area beyond the airport contains thick vegetation, remote farmland, and abandoned structures, places where a vulnerable person could easily fall victim. Despite international attention, numerous documentaries, and volunteers searching for years, Lars Mittank has never been found. His last moments on camera show a man running for his life, but from who or what remains the enduring mystery. On March 22, 2011, 24-year-old Rebecca Coriam, a young British crew member aboard the Disney Wonder cruise ship, disappeared without a trace while the vessel sailed in the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from the coast of Mexico. What makes Rebecca's case chilling isn't just a mystery itself. It's that it happened in plain sight, under the constant presence of cameras and crew members. Rebecca was a cheerful, hard-working crew member. She loved the ocean, and her friends describe her as friendly and full of life. On the night of her disappearance, she had been assigned to monitor the ship's children's activities, but had some free time in the evening. CCTV footage shows her entering a staff area around 11 p.m., chatting with colleagues on her phone. Then, she simply vanished. When Rebecca failed to report for her duties the next morning, the crew raised the alarm. Security cameras, which covered most hallways and common areas, provided no footage of her leaving the ship. The last recorded moment captured her on the crew deck near the ship's starboard side, looking toward the ocean. The ship's staff and U.S. Coast Guard conducted extensive searches. Helicopters scoured the waters, and every life jacket and lifeboat was checked. Despite the vast search efforts, there was no trace of Rebecca. Not a lifeline, not a flotation device, not a body. The official explanation suggested she might have fallen overboard accidentally, but the circumstances surrounding her disappearance cast doubt on this theory. No one saw her near the ship's edge at night. The ship's railings were tall and secure. Crew members who were nearby reported no signs of distress. CCTV footage showed no suspicious individuals following her. Many theories emerged. 1. Accidental fall. Could Rebecca have somehow climbed over the railing unnoticed? The ocean at night, with waves and wind, could explain why no trace was found. 2. Foul play. Some believe she may have been attacked by another crew member or passenger and thrown overboard. Investigations were limited, and many questions remained unanswered. 3. Voluntary disappearance. Though Rebecca was generally happy, some speculate she may have staged her disappearance to start a new life, though friends insist this was completely out of character. Her case remains one of the most perplexing maritime disappearances in recent history. Disney and U.S. authorities eventually closed the investigation, citing insufficient evidence to continue. To this day, Rebecca Coriam's name appears on the wall of the Missing at Sea, a haunting reminder that sometimes, even in the bright light of a bustling cruise ship, someone can simply vanish, leaving nothing but questions and an unshakable sense of unease. On October 21st, 1978, Frederick Valentich, a 20-year-old Australian pilot, took off in a small Cessna 182L over Bay Strait on a routine flight from Moorabbin Airport to King Island. He never arrived. What makes his disappearance unforgettable is a strange and chilling radio transmission that preceded it, an eerie encounter with something unidentified in the skies. Frederick was an experienced pilot, known among friends for his love of aviation and fascination with UFOs. That evening, around 7:06 p.m., he radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control, reporting that a large, unknown aircraft was flying above him. He described it as, "It's not an aircraft that's hovering over me. It's shining. It's got 4 bright lights." Valentich reported that the object was moving faster than any conventional plane, and its movements defied the laws of flight. Air traffic controllers attempted to clarify, asking for his altitude and heading. Frederick replied calmly, almost curiously, noting the object's metallic surface and unusual motion. At 7:12 p.m., Frederick said, "It's hovering over me and it's not an aircraft. I don't know what it is." Then his voice changed abruptly, filled with panic. "It's not an aircraft. It's coming towards me." The transmission ended with a strange metallic scraping sound and silence. Frederick Valentich was never heard from again. No wreckage was ever recovered. His plane, complete with fuel and equipment, disappeared from radar, leaving no evidence of crash. Authorities conducted an exhaustive search across Bay Strait and the surrounding coastline. Planes and ships scoured the waters. There were no visible wreckage, no body, no floating debris. Maritime and aviation experts were baffled. The Cessna carried a significant amount of fuel, meaning it should have been detectable if it had gone down in the sea. Theories surrounding Valentich's disappearance remain controversial and chilling. 1. UFO abduction. Some UFO enthusiasts argue that Valentich's last transmission is one of the most credible accounts of alien encounter in aviation history. The description of the object, combined with his calm but increasingly alarmed tone, suggests he may have been forcibly taken or drawn away from his plane. 2. Pilot error. Skeptics propose Frederick became disoriented in the dark, flying over a featureless sea. He may have entered a graveyard spiral, an uncontrolled descent, though this doesn't explain the metallic sounds on the recording. 3. Deliberate disappearance. A few suggest Valentich staged his own disappearance, though evidence of personal motives is lacking and he left no note. Frederick Valentich's disappearance remains one of the most mysterious aviation cases ever recorded, a daylight vanishing in the skies, witnessed only through his own terrified voice. To this day, his final moments echo through aviation history, a haunting reminder that some disappearances leave more questions than answers, and sometimes the sky itself becomes a void. In early February 2013, 21-year-old Elisa Lam, a Canadian student visiting Los Angeles, checked into the notorious Hotel Cecil, a location infamous for crime, suicides, and mysterious deaths. Elisa's disappearance quickly captured global attention, fueled by a chilling piece of evidence, an elevator surveillance video that seemed to show her behaving strangely in daylight in front of hotel staff and cameras. Elisa was last seen on January 31st, 2013. Her parents, alarmed by her lack of communication, contacted the LAPD when she failed to check out as planned. Hotel staff described her as polite but odd, noting she sometimes lingered in hallways or appeared to be speaking to herself. The building was equipped with cameras, which captured her entering and exiting elevators, wandering the hallways, and interacting with unseen elements. Most haunting was the elevator footage. Elisa presses multiple buttons, steps in and out repeatedly, gestures with her hands, and appears to hide or duck as though someone is watching her. Her behavior is erratic, frantic, and entirely unexplainable. It was recorded in broad daylight, a stark contrast to the darkness often associated with disappearances. Yet here was a young woman, visible to anyone who might have been nearby, slowly vanishing from reality. A week later, Elisa's body was found in a water tank on the hotel roof. How she got there remains a mystery. The water tanks were secured with heavy locks, and no fingerprints, aside from her own, were recovered on the tanks. The roof was difficult to access without security doors or ladders. The coroner ruled her death an accident, noting she likely drowned, but there was no clear explanation of how she entered the tank alone. The circumstances surrounding her death spawned countless theories. 1. Accidental death. Some believe Elisa climbed onto the roof in a distressed state and accidentally fell into the tank. 2. Mental health struggles. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, leading some to speculate her behavior in the elevator indicated a manic or psychotic episode. 3. Foul play. Others argue that the location and security measures make accidental death improbable. Could someone have followed her, trapping her in the water tank? 4. Supernatural interpretations. Given the hotel's dark history, some conspiracy-minded theorists suggested a sinister presence was involved, a haunting daylight mystery. Elisa Lam's case remains one of the most haunting modern disappearances, blending daylight visibility, security camera footage, and unanswered questions. The public fascination endures, partly because the elevator video gives the unnerving illusion of being in her presence, only to realize that even under surveillance, a young woman could disappear completely. Her story serves as a chilling reminder. Sometimes, being seen doesn't guarantee being safe. On January 24th, 2006, 24-year-old Jennifer Kesse, a young woman living in Orlando, Florida, left her apartment in the early morning to drive to work. She never arrived. What makes Jennifer's disappearance particularly chilling is that she vanished in broad daylight in a densely populated residential area without leaving a single trace. Jennifer was an energetic, organized young woman who worked in real estate. That morning, she left her 14th-floor condo, parked her car in the garage, and walked to her vehicle. Surveillance cameras captured her leaving the building, greeting a security guard, and heading toward her car, all routine, ordinary movements. It was a normal day. Later, her boyfriend called her to check in. Jennifer did not answer. Friends and family attempted to reach her repeatedly, with no response. By evening, it became clear that she was missing. Authorities were called, and a search began. Investigators quickly reviewed hundreds of hours of surveillance footage from surrounding streets, buildings, and businesses. The last confirmed footage showed Jennifer walking toward her car, yet her car remained in the garage, and she never returned. Even stranger, security cameras captured no one approaching her from behind, and no unusual vehicles were recorded in the immediate area. It was as if she simply vanished. Jennifer's disappearance led to countless theories and search efforts. 1. Foul play by an acquaintance. Authorities initially considered the possibility of someone she knew, someone who might have lured or ambushed her. However, no credible suspects emerged. 2. Abduction by a stranger. Some suggested she may have been taken by a stranger who stalked her route, but the neighborhood was residential, busy, and well monitored, making a discreet abduction extraordinarily difficult. 3. Voluntary disappearance. Though less likely, some speculated that Jennifer might have planned to leave her life behind. Friends and family vehemently denied this possibility, citing her strong ties to her job and community. 4. Connection to other unsolved cases. Her case remains one of Orlando's most baffling. Investigators even explored links to other disappearances, but nothing conclusive emerged. Over the years, dozens of tips were investigated. Sightings across the state, anonymous letters, and even claimed confessions. Yet none led to Jennifer. Her car was never moved, no personal belongings were disturbed, and her apartment showed no signs of struggle. The absence of any trace, coupled with the daylight setting of her disappearance, has left Jennifer Kesse's case both infamous and haunting. Residents of the area recall her morning departure vividly, knowing she simply left her apartment and vanished. To this day, Jennifer Kesse remains missing. Her case a stark reminder that sometimes, even under the watchful eyes of the city, someone can disappear completely, leaving only questions and unease behind. On September 20th, 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico left her home in Belen, New Mexico, to go for a morning bike ride along U.S. Route 47. Tara was known for her adventurous spirit, often biking along the rural highways near her hometown. That day, like any other, she took her bright red bicycle and set off under the early morning sun, but she never returned. Tara's mother, Patty, reported her missing after she failed to come back for hours. Local authorities began a search immediately, combing the rural roads, desert trails, and nearby fields. Witnesses later reported seeing a young woman resembling Tara riding her bike that morning, but after that, all sightings ended. There were no confirmed sightings for days, weeks, or months. The first major clue surfaced 2 years later. In 1990, a photo was discovered in a parking lot in Florida, showing a young woman and a boy bound and gagged, appearing to be held captive. The woman in the photograph bore a striking resemblance to Tara Calico. Authorities investigated thoroughly, but the identities of both the woman and boy in the photo were never confirmed. Tara's disappearance has spawned numerous theories, all unsettling in their possibilities. 1. Kidnapping. Many investigators believe Tara was abducted by someone familiar with the rural area, capable of removing her without leaving witnesses. The Florida photograph seemed to support this theory, suggesting she may have been held against her will. 2. Accidental death. Some speculate Tara may have suffered an accident on her ride, a fall or sudden medical issue, and ended up in a remote, undiscovered location. However, the likelihood of a total lack of trace in the open desert or roadside area is extremely low. 3. Foul play during transit. Another theory suggests that someone may have intercepted Tara along her bike route, forcing her into a vehicle and transporting her far from her hometown. This could explain the Florida photograph and the complete lack of physical evidence in New Mexico. 4. Voluntary disappearance. Although rare, some consider the possibility Tara left intentionally. Friends and family reject this, describing her as responsible, close to home, and unlikely to abandon her life without a trace. Despite over 3 decades of investigation, Tara Calico remains missing. The roads she rode that day are quiet, the desert stretching endlessly, and the world remembers her most vividly through the haunting photograph that may or may not show her in captivity. Tara's case is emblematic of a terrifying reality. Someone can be visible one moment, seemingly safe in broad daylight, and gone the next, leaving only questions, speculation, and enduring fear. Her story, alongside those of Brandon Swanson, Maura Murray, Brian Shaffer, Sneha Philip, Lars Mittank, Rebecca Coriam, Frederick Valentich, Elisa Lam, and Jennifer Kesse, forms a tapestry of real-life disappearances that remain unsolved, each chilling, each unforgettable, and each a stark reminder of how fragile human safety can be, even in the daylight.